So here we are, we three queens. I'm Achieng,
And I'm Micheline.
and today we want to talk about well-being, about mental well-being and maintaining mental well-being in life, and the role that therapy plays in mental well-being. And I think it's such an opportune subject. For one thing, we survived COVID, and that was really where we started talking so much more openly about getting mental health
Exactly.
support, and people needing mental health support. And then we've sort of gone through the times where that's kind of just grown and continued, with much more consciousness and
Yep.
much more deliberate conversations without the stigma, I find.
Absolutely.
And then in the season
Yeah.
that we're in Kenya now, with so much going on and quite a lot of loss of life in light of the political situation, mental well-being continues to become even more critical and embedded in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at therapy and getting the help you need to be mentally well as something that has multiple layers. Because there's the professional therapy that you
Interesting.
get,
Yeah.
but there's also other aspects where you get therapy, even though it's not necessarily considered that. For example, you know when you go through something and you run to your friends and you wail, and or you're annoyed, you're dealing with something and you cuss out, the situation, and you
Yes.
talk to friends.
Yes.
That, in and as of itself,
Yes.
is a form of therapy.
You know, yes. Yes. And it's so good to remind ourselves and to
Yes.
remind everyone watching of that, because we'll get into maybe like therapists, the whole idea of a formal psychologist. But what we have, the Ubuntu, the tribe, the
Yes.
sisterhood, the brotherhood, the
Yes.
collective, the community,
Yes.
the friends, that provides an opportunity to get counsel, to get advice. And maybe one has to wade through it, because sometimes perhaps, I don't know, some people have come to us and said it's not everyone that's going to give you the perfect advice.
Yes.
But surely there's, I don't know, your bestie or a trio or
Yeah.
quintet of people,
Yeah, your kind of
who,
inner circle.
yes, with
Yeah.
whom you speak. This is what I'm hearing from you, is that you
Yeah.
speak to them and you feel like you've gone through therapy.
Yes.
Because
It's not that you feel like you've gone through therapy. You feel better. The
feel better.
burden or the issue doesn't
Yes.
seem as large.
Yes.
You probably have figured out one or two or three ways that you can survive another day because of having had those conversations. And so
Yes.
it kind of serves the purpose that therapy serves in a way.
Yes.
And so it's an important part of helping you maintain your well-being. Even though it's not necessarily called therapy, in and as of itself, it's therapeutic.
I love it. It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
And the thing I realized when I do that, and you're part of my tribe, you might have had the exact same thing, or a shade of what I've said. And so
Yeah.
this idea that one is not alone comes through.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
sometimes when you have the situation hit, let's call them out. You've broken up with someone, you've lost a job, you've got a really bad professional evaluation, you trying to think, what else has happened? All those things can happen.
Yes.
And you sit and talk to someone, and they're like, oh, but that thing just happened to me, and this is how I dealt with it. And you're like, oh, I thought I was the only unique person in the world for whom this really bad thing has happened, to whom this bad thing has happened. So that's a great example of an unofficial kind of therapeutic environment that is available to many. And we know that it's not everybody that has well-meaning, friends or a group of people who will listen and who will make you feel better. But I'm just saying that's such a good one.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We have that.
Yeah,
I have that.
Absolutely.
I'm also thinking, Acheng, of let's think about formal therapy.
Yes.
Right. So, couple of thoughts. Yeah. One general and one specific. Africans, up to about, even today, let's say, I'm sure if you're like over 45, quick guess is, let me push it, over 55. Many don't believe in a psychologist.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate
It's
because I
crazy.
think it's got to do with our culture. But the fact of the matter is, therapy is a science. It's not a science that emerged out of one sunny day.
Exactly. People like you go to
People have
school for
been
this, you
studied,
take
yes.
psychology courses.
And it has been studied and proven
Yes.
that it helps. Now, obviously, there's different types of therapy. You can see a clinical psychologist or a counseling psychologist or a psychiatrist. I mean, there's so many types of therapy that you can get.
Right.
It does help when you know that you're dealing with something and you know that you're struggling. It does help to see a therapist. And I know a lot of people struggle with the whole thing of, where do I even start?
Yes.
Where do I find one?
Yes. And so those are the levels of it. So first of all, I was putting it in the context of
Yes.
Africa, where I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
Africans.
No,
You know, I mean, if you're under 40 and you're telling me, nah, I don't believe in a psychologist, what's that? I'm just like, that's
Yeah.
terrible, because I really thought this is an old school problem, you know?
I've got a friend whose dad tells her, leave those American psychology
Yes,
things.
some people say
You know?
that. Actually, some people even say, you know, like depression's a white man's disease, white woman's disease.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that we hear in the community, such that, to your point, there are actually very few black therapists, let alone African therapists, psychologists, or psychiatrists. And for anyone who's just like, oh my God, I've forgotten the difference, basically, you know, your psychologist is really looking at the mind and, you know, problems, you know, of the mind, challenges you might have, and works through it using tools that are non-clinical, let's say, not medicine. A clinical psychologist might be able to prescribe. A psychiatrist is looking at deeper issues, you know, again, of the mind that that do require actual medication.
Yes.
So that's just my, you know, more than cursory definition of those categories. Now, because in general we haven't, Africa, very, very big continent, I know 50 plus countries, but more or less sub-Saharan Africa has not believed in this. People haven't studied it as much, so there are fewer in the market. Now this is changing drastically, and you know, we have more than, I think, 100, for sure, more than 100 psychologists in Kenya. Psychiatrists are fewer. Main point, there are few people to go to.
You have any
Let me
experiences?
tell you that, to my shock, because I thought I was like the perfect girlfriend, and I had a couple of issues. This is like a couple of boyfriends ago.
Yeah.
Do you know how stunned I was when he said, you know, black African man, like, oh, you know, let's go for couples therapy to just really help us sort this through. I swear I
was
nearly
ahead of
fell
his
off my
time.
chair.
I know, I bet you did.
He was so ahead of his time. And then I went skipping giddily.
Yeah. Knowing how perfect you are, can't be me, must be him.
Wait till I tell the therapist. Can you imagine? This sounds horrible, because this is somebody I allegedly cared for and loved, but like in those moments of stress, you just want to be right, and I just wanted him to be wrong. So I go nicely day one, and then I'm very studious and earnest, and I have my notebook. Oh my God, what a learning. This would have been, let me think, this would have been about 15, it's been a while, it's 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So like I said, a couple boyfriends ago.
Yeah.
You know? And I learned so much. You know, if I quickly just distill it, 2-3 things I learned. One, first of all, do you hear those birds?
Yeah.
They're so amazing. Can we come to that? Because I think birds and nature are therapy, and it's like, I don't know what time is 6 something in Nairobi as we sit.
7 o'clock.
It's tranquil and the birds are just chirping.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they're good for like the sound effects, but we're actually really loving them because it's therapeutic.
I think they think the sun is still shining because of the light we're using for filming.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Because they're not this noisy.
Well, I like them.
But they're wonderful.
I do like them. So back to therapy.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of things, people. And you know, some of you will have gone through it. One is, for a good therapist, it's the objectivity. Right? They're armed with psychological tools and so on, but they're really quite objective. So it's not like your bestie who might be on your side and be like, yeah, that loser, why did he say this? No, the therapist is like, well, how did it make you feel? And did you consider this perspective? And that was what was bugging me because I just wanted to be right,
Yeah.
you know? But so one
Yeah.
is I really learned to respect the objectivity of like her stance, right? Which allowed me to think through, oh, okay, this is another way of looking at things,
Yes.
right? So that was something. And another takeaway is this is a catalyst, an enabler, someone that nudges, probes, pushes. You have to do the work yourself.
Yes.
You absolutely, so you're given the tools, you know, but you absolutely have to do the work.
Absolutely.
You know, so for me, one couples tool that I still use today, very simple, but we forget when we're fighting and stuff. It is, oh, I now see it from your point of view, right? So instead of me being hurt saying, or just you saying, oh, Mish, when you did this, when you went out all the time with your friends, I really just felt, I just feel like you abandoned me, right? Before therapy, I was like, come on, but you know I'm an extrovert. I go out with my friends all the time. You shouldn't think that way. And I sort of just poo-pooed his feelings, you know. But actually, that tool is really around, and this is useful in relationships. It's I did something and it made that person feel that way. I may not have intended to make him feel that way, but I have to honor and respect that feeling.
Absolutely.
You know, and so this is something even at work.
It's exactly
It comes in so handy.
It's not what you say, it's how you make them feel.
How you make someone feel.
Yeah. It's very easy to be, usually the best way to find a therapist, oftentimes, I mean, you can go and find a listed therapist and just try them out. But sometimes it helps to also ask, certain groups, maybe it's a professional group or maybe a business group, if they can recommend any therapists, or ask someone, maybe you have a friend, if you're younger, you may have a friend who's going through therapy. You can ask them, or they could then ask their mom or their dad.
Ask your doctor also. Do you know, like in the medical practice now, they're more equipped to do that reference.
Referring you. Absolutely. So that's one way that you can actually find a therapist. But I think the second thing is making sure the chemistry is there.
Absolutely. Do you know what?
Because
please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say,
on that.
you can meet a therapist and feel you have to. I mean, I know someone who was seeing a therapist, and every time it was time to see the therapist, they would shake and be feeling malaria.
And this is somebody you're paying money for. You're paying like a good, I don't know how much. But
and they're supposed to be helping you. If you're feeling terrified with the sessions, there is a problem.
So what was going on there, do you think? If you had to
the person was a little overbearing and had this bedside manner as a therapist was just very maybe aggressive and intimidating. I just think they were a crap therapist, if you ask me. Excuse my French.
No, you know what? This is such an important fact. So far we've covered, yes, a lot of Africans didn't believe, in therapy. Now we've moved on and we completely value them. Couples therapy is just one. You might have, we will actually come back to other triggers, if you will.
Yes, yeah.
And then practically how to find one.
Yes.
And then we have agency, right? This is our money. This is you who decides to wake up and go and find someone. So I agree with you.
Listen to what you feel coming out of that session. Therapy sometimes, I mean, you can come out because you're talking about stuff that's making you feel not settled mentally or emotionally or psychologically. You might come out of there feeling a little tired, but you know that you've covered some ground. But if you come out of there feeling worse than you went in, and feeling like your problems are even larger than when you walked through the door, or feeling less about yourself because of something they said, then that is an alarm bell. Listen to it.
Completely agree.
And don't feel obliged to go back there.
Exactly. Yeah. And the reason why I brought in the African context and the Black context is that context does matter.
Yes.
And so there are people I know who say they didn't have a choice. They always had, let's say, an older white psychologist as their person.
Yeah.
And really what was missing was that person didn't have context. So you couldn't explain to that person, oh yeah, and then this weekend I went to Shags. In Kenya, people go to Shags, by the way, which is often at Christmas. It's like the village where you're
the
from.
countryside, yeah.
And then, 10 cousins walked in, and then we just cooked for everyone and ate. And then, like some people don't have the context because they can't imagine Shags and they can't imagine 10 cousins walking in and you having food
Unannounced,
unannounced,
not having
right?
planned it.
So
like
already
3 months
you've
before.
lost someone.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
idea that
Yeah.
you might need, and women might feel the same way. They might feel like for XYZ reasons, a female therapist will have more context in terms of understanding our issues than a man.
Yeah.
So sometimes it cuts across gender. Sometimes it's even like age range. You might want
Yes.
somebody who can understand the age in which you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's race and
Yeah.
other. And all I'm saying is just let's also look at how that context works or
Yes.
not
Absolutely,
for us.
absolutely, spot on. So let's
So-
just circle back to one thing, and it's something you had said earlier, and you talked about nature. And there's, we've talked about kind of the people that can help us navigate, but there's also things we can do individually that just make us feel better or help us get more clarity of thought
Yeah,
when
I
we're
love
dealing
that.
with something.
What are yours? Yes, yes, yes. We do have our own like tools and ways. Yeah.
I think nature is good. Like I enjoy walking. I really enjoy solitude. Actually,
I was gonna
enjoy
say
my
that
own
I know,
company
actually know yours.
completely.
You go into
Yeah.
silence.
I completely cocoon.
Yes.
Because that's me kind of getting rid of the noise
Yeah.
so that I can think through what I'm going through, why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and literally, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 things I can do to help me feel better. So I completely cocoon.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are times where I know, like you don't even have to call it. I
Yeah.
just might know something may have happened.
Yeah.
And then I just can picture you here in the garden,
Yeah.
humongous mug of, I don't know, tea.
Yes.
And just really that's your way of sorting things through.
Absolutely. What's yours? What are yours?
I've got mine. I have maybe 4. In no order. I swim. I swim like just typically twice a week and stuff. So I'll do more laps or
Yeah.
I'll swim more frequently when there's something, and it's just cleanses my mind.
Yes.
Trees. So thank God I live right opposite this beautiful forest, Karura Forest. When you come to Nairobi, this is actually a must come because
Yes.
it's like 10, 15 minutes from anywhere. So I walk
Yeah.
and I just feel seeing these big old trees help me sort things
Yeah.
through. Both those are solitary activities, but it's the motion and the solitude that help me. A third is, I'm just one of these people who's so blessed to have 3 sisters who are like my best friends who, we're so close.
Yes.
So my sisters will hear about the thing that I'm going through and help me sort it out. And then the tribe that includes you, like having the group of people.
I have a weird one, which is sometimes I throw myself into work.
Yes.
Because I tell
I've seen
myself,
that.
this feeling, it's evoking negative energy. And I literally have conversations with myself where I say, I need this to turn this negative energy into positive energy.
Oh, well, that is so
and
fascinating,
I throw myself
right?
into, if it's a project or some work I was doing, I throw myself into this thing. And I find that I get the thing done really well. But after that, I'm exhausted. So, I'll take a shower and I'll sleep. But I've burnt away the negative energy. And then, of course, my bestie is a counseling psychologist,
Yes, she
by
is.
the way. So
Yes, she
she's
is.
my free therapist,
She's
whenever
so
I kind of,
wonderful.
oh my God, guess what happened? So those are kind of mine as well, some additional
She's
ones.
so wonderful. And a comment on you going into like intense work mode.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It's temporary and it fixes the thing.
Yes.
If it were like permanent, remember workaholics, right? And some of us maybe have been through phases of that.
Yes.
The reason why it sounds like, alcoholic or other olic that is generally toxic is that it is toxic behavior and it's usually a crutch. So if you're that person or you've been that person or you see that person at work, you realize that they're doing it as some kind of a cover, band-aid, a healing for somewhere else in their life where they're hurting. And we've got to remember that it's actually pretty unhealthy. Like long stretches, I'm talking about years, decades of, oh, I work 16-hour days and then I haven't had a weekend off, da, da, da.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is probably the result
symptom
of
of
some
something.
kind of deficiency or difficulty or something.
Yes.
And also needs to be healed.
Absolutely.
And
because it's not healthy.
It's not healthy. It's just
It's
we're
just
supposed
not.
to play and sleep and
Absolutely.
rest and eat.
Absolutely.
So the person who doesn't get to do that because they're doing 19 hours of work, definitely, needs some help and has gotten to that place because of something in their life that isn't working, or in their minds or in their worlds
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
has been, a major challenge.
Yeah.
And so when you said that, I'm like, yeah, I can see how I use it. It helps.
Yes.
But it's obviously
it's
not
not
sustainable.
yes, it's not a long-term thing. For me, I do it in bursts.
Yes.
And it works for me because I get some amazing work done, and at the same time, I get rid of the negative energy.
Yeah.
Based on whatever it is that's disrupting my mental health.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the ways. Yeah.
What we've said has made sense. I hope so. This has been
I think
this
so.
has been therapeutic, and hanging out with a Cheng and Michelle, and now we have
and
Sunny, and just doing this as
Yeah.
we do at least once a quarter. What happens is we're either sitting in nature,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
helps.
Or nice spaces.
Or nice spaces. And then
Yeah.
we have these conversations and we go deep.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. That's therapy for me.
It's completely therapeutic for me too.
All right,
So
people.
on that note,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Thank you always for being there for us and
Yeah.
with us.
Absolutely.
We absolutely love you guys.
Yeah.
So please don't forget to keep
Please
following and
subscribe.
subscribe.
Take care.